Stalwarts in the field, Dr. Rajgopal sir and Dr. Lucido D'Souza. I think probably if these two people have not done the pioneering work, most of us would have not been received the chance of being in this humane field. For this session, I invite our chairpersons, Dr. Sukhdev Nayak sir, who is an anesthesiologist and a pioneer in palliative care development in Orissa. He was also past president of Indian Association of Palliative Care. Our second chairman for this session is Poonam Bagai. She heads the organization by name Can Kids Kids Can. She's also a cancer survivor, and through her organization, she has made a difference to many people's lives through cancer care as well as palliative care for children. I now hand over to Dr. Sukhdev and Poonam to take this session ahead. Thank you.
Fantastic session. We are very excited to bring this second plenary today. A very important plenary because for the work that we do, we need to always be motivated and inspired. And we couldn't find two more important people than Dr. D'Souza and Dr. Rajagopal to inspire us in the work that we do. In our commitment to palliative care in India, and we gladly I think he's still having technical difficulties. So we will then first invite Dr. D'Souza to start with his address to us. We look forward to hearing his journey over the last 40 years and how much he has contributed. So many people have known him, have admired him, have learned from him. And we welcome you today, sir, and we look forward to your talk with us.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you once again for calling me to give this talk to you. Now, before I start, I'd like to answer two very important questions. And these are, why did I take up palliative care? Question one. And second one is, why am I here today in front of you? So let me answer these questions. The first is, it starts many years ago when I had just passed out from medical college and was doing my first house job in the surgical department at JJ Hospital. In the ward, there was a terminally ill patient lingering there for a long time. Till one day, the registrar told me, I don't want to see this patient another day. What could I do? So I asked my ward boy friend, "Ye patient ko jara nikal dena." And what did he do? He brought a trolley, put the patient on the trolley, took him outside the hospital gate, and dumped him on the footpath. The next day, when I came to the hospital, I saw this poor man covered with flies and vermin and in a miserable, dying state. That image has never left my mind. And I swore that day that if I had any chance, this would never happen again. The next question of why is when I went to the Tata Memorial Hospital as a junior surgeon. At that time, when all treatment is over, when you reach the end of the line and beyond treatment, you have to tell the patient, I'm sorry, I can't do nothing more for you as we have come to the end of our line of treatment. And then come the next pleas, cries, the needs of the patient. I have no place to go. I stay in one room with 6 family members. I don't have adequate water and toilet facilities. Who will do my fungating dressings? I am in severe pain. I don't have enough money for food. I cannot afford to buy my pain medication. And the plea was, doctor, please don't send me home. And that time, I could do nothing. I had to harden my heart and send them home because we needed the bed for another active treatment patient. Today, I have another answer. I'll tell them, I cannot do anything more for your disease because there is nothing more for it. But I can do a lot more for you as a patient, as my patient, and that is to send you to a place of peace. The suitable alternative is palliative care and is given in our Shanti Avedna Sadan. I will send you, I told the patient, to a place called Shanti Avedna Sadan where you will be at peace. Shanti means peace. Avedna is without pain. And Sadan is a place, a home, a place of rest. And our dictum is where there is love and there is no pain. And you know something, on a lighter note, this quotation of St. Augustine almost got me into a lot of problem. Because a young man read this and said, where there is love, there is no pain. And he came charging into my office and said, doctor, what you have written is all wrong. Because I was in love, I loved so much, I got ditched, and now I'm in tremendous pain. And I told him, my friend, there's a second part to this quotation. And if there is the pain, there is a pain that is loved. Go and love your pain, and you will get over it. The Shanti Avedna Sadan is India's very first hospice. Started in 1986, completed 35 years of service. 3 branches, Mumbai 100 beds, Delhi 40 beds, Goa 30 beds. Today, perhaps the largest in the world. We have treated over 30,000 patients, irrespective of community, caste or creed, and totally free of cost. 20% of patients return home. They feel so good after palliative care, but they are not really cured. They sometimes come back. Hence, Shanti Avedna is not a place to die, but a place to live, because we add days to life, life to days, and not days to life. Hence, we want the patient earlier than later. It is from this institution that I have learned what I am going to share with you today. You can get details of palliative care from lectures, books, talks, etc. But human values you can only get from one who have experienced them through the patients that you have looked after. And this is what I wish to share with you today. The first and most important human value is to be gentle. When I take anybody into the Shanti Avedna, the first promise that they have to make to me is that they will never speak loudly. They will never get angry with the patient or their relatives, however crude, rude, and worried they may be. Why? Because your patient and relatives are broken down. They cannot take loud voice, loud shouting. Let me illustrate this with an example. Many years ago, when we had started the Shanti Vedna, there was a lady who was dying of ovarian cancer. She had 4 children, and she was the mainstay of the family. We tried to explain to the family that she was going downhill, but they would just not accept it. Till one day she passed away, and then all hell broke loose. The relatives, the children, 4 children, cursed us, cursed the Shanti Vedna, cursed me and my wife, cursed doctors, nurses, cursed everybody. Why? Because they were broken down in spirit, completely broken down. I could not take the loss. And what did we do? We kept silent. The morale is, if you want to give good palliative care, the first is that you have to be gentle with your patients and their relations. The second most important human value in palliative care is to listen. It's so very important, because unless you listen and know what is troubling the patient, how can you be in a position to help that patient? I have a formula of my own called Aloha. A stands for ask, L stands for listen. Listen to what the patient is saying. O is to observe. And then A again is to ask again, so that you have got the whole picture. Then and then only you are able to respond to the needs of your palliative care patient. Let me give you a true example. I had a patient called Nagardas. He was a very intelligent patient, but unfortunately he had a huge swelling in the neck, which was growing day by day. He was a very intelligent man, kept on asking me questions, and I listened. But smart enough, I never gave him an answer immediately. I told him, I will answer your question 1 week later. And when I came the next week, he used to pester me for the answers. The questions were, why can't you remove this tumor? In modern technology, advancement of treatment, you cannot remove this tumor. And I had to tell him, the tumor is too big for us to remove. We will have to remove you from the tumor. And then his next question was, if you can't remove the tumor, why can't you put me to sleep? And I told him, look at all the patients around you. See, they are suffering much more than you are. If I put you to sleep, I will have to put all these others also to sleep. And then he asked me no more questions. And I told him, you want to do something? Go and attend to each of these patients. Help them in their feeding, nursing, medication. Talk to them, counsel them, and bring them peace. He did that. And in doing that, he brought peace to himself, and he died peacefully. The next human value is empathy, not sympathy. Sympathy is when you have pity on somebody. You go on a ward round, you see them suffering with huge tumors, ulcerations, fungations, etc., and you feel sorry for them. That is sympathy, but they don't want your sympathy. We have to give them our admiration. Often I ask myself, if I were in his place, would I be able to suffer what he is suffering? No, they don't need sympathy. They need empathy. Empathy is what you have to give them if they are suffering. Let me give you an example of what I mean. I had a patient in my ward who was a war widow. She had terminal cervix cancer and was bleeding to death, daily becoming paler, whiter and whiter. One day when I went to see her, I asked her, what is troubling you? And she said, I have 2 problems. One is I have 2 small children and I don't know what will happen to them when I pass away. And the second is I have taken a loan for a machine on which I used to earn my living. I haven't been able to pay back that loan. And I told her, don't worry, we will look after it. We will look after it. I told my volunteers, take the children and have them put in an orphanage. And they did that. Those two children today are somewhere in the wide world, very happy and contented. I told them, go and buy that machine. Whatever money has to be paid for it, do that. And they went and brought the machine to the Shanti Avedna. And she worked on that machine till she died. And she gave me a token of appreciation. And this is what she embroidered, a handkerchief on the machine herself, and signed it from Asha. Today, this little piece of cloth is worth to me much more than anything else that you can give me, because it is a human value of gratitude for the little empathy that I showed her. The next is, we must combine our competence with compassion. We have to give the best of treatment in all the possible ways, but we must not forget the human needs of the patient. Let me give you an example. We had a patient who was always smoking. He could not do without his smoke. So he asked me, can I smoke? So I said, it's not advisable because you are a cancer patient. But what does it matter in the terminal stages? So we put him in a corner and let him smoke as much as he wanted. In gratitude, he even offered to share his imported cigarettes with me, to which I refused calmly, saying that you make the best use of them, not me. And I had another patient who had a tracheostomy. He wanted to smoke. So we let him smoke by putting the cigarette near his tracheostomy, and he was very happy. And then we had a patient who wanted his nightcap, alcohol, to go to sleep. Without that, he couldn't manage to sleep. So I used to gather all the alcohol from my patients and give him a small dose every night. Till one day, he took his dose and went to sleep forever. He must have met his creator with alcohol on his breath, but it didn't matter because he was at peace. That is compassion for the patient, his needs, which you have to combine with competence. The next point is, how do we treat palliative care, either at home or in the hospice? First way is to treat the disease, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, surgery, disease-related treatment to give palliation to the patient. The second way is to treat the patient, only his symptoms. And there comes a crossover point. When do we concentrate on one and not on the other? And that point of turnover or changeover is dictated by the time when the treatment that you are giving, the disease-related treatment, is not benefiting the patient. You can give chemotherapy to the very end, that the patient drops. You can give monoclonal expensive treatment right up till the end. The question is it really worthwhile? I have been guilty of this myself. In early days, when morphine was not available, I had a patient who had a very advanced cancer in the head and neck region. He was in severe pain. He told me, you can kill me, but relieve me of the pain. I went to the boss and I said, can I do surgery on him? And the boss said, what surgery you want to do? I told him, I'm going to remove everything. And that's what I did. I removed his tongue, larynx, pharynx, everything, till he had only a tube between his oral cavity and the esophagus. But do you know what? Very next day, the patient came and touched my feet. Why? Because his pain was dramatically relieved. I had done palliative surgery effectively, but was it worth it? Would I do it again now, a second time? No. At that time, we didn't have painkillers. Today, we have an armamentarium of painkillers, morphine, and other drugs, which can keep the patient very comfortable. We do not have to resort to extensive palliative care surgery. I have seen an abdominoperineal surgery be done on an 85-year-old patient who already had liver metastases. And when I asked the surgeon, why did you do that? A simple colostomy would be enough. And he said, for palliation. There are no limits to what you can do in the name of palliation. What you have to ask is it worth the effort? The next question is, where is palliative and hospice care best given? It's never good to put a palliative care patient who is terminal in an active treatment hospital because they are geared to treating the patient. You can keep him at home if you have the facilities and the carers to give the care that he requires. But if that is not possible, then the next best is hospice care. And why is hospice care the best place? Because it's a team effort. The patient has many needs. He is in pain, he has symptom problems, he has mental problems, he has psychological problems, he has financial problems, and he even has spiritual problems. You need each one of them to be tackled. And for that, you have to have a team effort. Who is the most important in this team? The answer is everyone is important at the right time. If you are in pain, you will call the doctor. If you have soiled your bed, you will call the nurse. If you are mentally worried, you will call the psychologist or the counselor. And if you are spiritually worried, you will call for the pastor or the priest. So team effort is the key of hospice care. One thing that one should never do for a terminally ill patient is to admit him in an ICU. You think that you are putting him in ICU, you are doing a great thing for him. Wrong. You are doing more harm than good. Putting a terminally ill patient in an ICU with tubes stuck in every orifice and with no hope for any recovery, but only to die alone in an ICU is the worst possible thing that you can give to a terminally ill patient. No. Instead, let him be on his bed at home, surrounded in the family, in peace for the end. And our final goal is to attain peace for the patient. Peace to mind, body and soul. Body free of symptoms, free of pain. Mind free of anxieties. And soul peace with his God. And we have to do this with the patient's self, with his friends and relations, and with his God. If you have achieved all this, you have brought peace to the patient. Let me end by giving you a final example of a story. I had a patient who was very unfortunate in his life. He had not one cancer, but 7 cancers in his colon, and I had to remove his entire colon. He was distraught. He lost his job. He lost his money. He lost his health. He lost his wife, who deserted him for another affair. And he was angry with God. One day, we admitted him to Shantya Vedana and slowly started counseling him to face his problems. And one evening, my bishop friend told me he was going to visit a priest in the southern. And I told the bishop, please have a look at this poor man. He has got nobody else and he is dying. And the good bishop went and spent a lot of time with him. At the end of which, that same night, he made his peace with the Lord. And that same night, God called him to himself. We had won. We had brought him peace to the end. I am sharing these human values with you so that you can use them in achieving peace for your patients. And if you do that, is for you to win. I wish you, therefore, good luck in your mission of palliative care, and I thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. D'Souza. This was really, really moving. A journey captured, a journey of 40 years that you have captured so beautifully by capturing the human values of palliative care, and how wonderfully well you have captured it in the work that you have done. As you spoke, at every step, I felt that this is someone who has lived these values, and this is someone who can look back at his 40 years and say, I have truly, at every step, even as palliative care in the country has evolved, even as there is so much more that is happening in palliative care today, even as it has evolved, for every one of us who is associated with palliative care in any way, form, or the other, I think the most important thing is to remember what you spoke of today, the values of compassion, of empathy, of love, of that beautiful saying that you have about love and pain, all of that. Thank you very, very much for sharing this with us today. We'd like to move on to our next speaker, Dr. Rajagopal. Uh, Dr. Priya, you forgot to mention, but I'm also the vice chairman of Dr. Rajagopal's Pallium India. And I want to
Oi.
spend a minute telling you that, how I met Dr. Rajagopal was because I'm a cancer survivor. I came back to India. I used to be afraid of dying, and I wanted to learn what it was that overcomes that fear. How do you cope with cancer and all the fear and all the feelings? And there he was standing in a hall making a speech about palliative care. And I said, here is someone who knows. And here is someone who actually is talking about what I want to know. And I went up to him and I spoke to him, and that's how I joined Pallium India. I don't think he needs a long introduction. All of us here today know him well, the father of palliative care in India, the enormous amount of work he has put in all areas, be it from policy to advocacy to setting up palliative care centers, but most importantly, guiding all of us in a very, very humble way. So, with no further ado, I would like to introduce this very humble man who I have enormous respect for and who I'm privileged to work with in Pallium India in the space of palliative care, to all of you, to talk to us about something that is very, very important. Increasingly, we are talking about access. Increasingly, we're saying what is the access we have to palliative care or to pediatric oncology or to healthcare or to patient centered care. But, and we are doing a lot of work. I personally do a lot of pediatric oncology related work, but I see how enormously this palliative care world is progressing. What is important now is for us to look at measures and indicators to see are we making good progress. So with no further ado, Dr. Rajagopal, for your plenary address on indicators for access to palliative care.
Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Anjum and colleagues, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this subject. we are going to talk about ensuring quality and coverage. In the 35 odd years that have elapsed since Dr. Lucito D'Souza first brought palliative care to our country, we have made significant progress. And now I believe we are poised to really take off and fly. At this time, we want to make sure that whatever we are doing is the effective measures, that they satisfy the needs and are also cost effective, for which we need some measurements. The usual management jargon would say that if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. You may not always agree. Oh, we have all done a lot without measuring and we have made changes. Yes, but now we are not really sure that what we have been doing is exactly what is needed by our patients and families, and that it is cost effective. If we have indicators with which to measure progress in palliative care, we can be more assured of the measures that we take. Ideally, we should be measuring the outcome. And if we could just show how quality of life improves in our individual patient cohorts, that would have been ideal. But this is not practical, because as we improve the quality of life, concurrently, there is a negative effect, that is the disease trajectory, creating confusion. Disease keeps worsening. And secondly, quality of life is dependent on the balance between expectations and reality. As our expectations change, that also will influence the quality adversely, can. So we cannot really do control studies comparing two groups, because that would be unethical to deny palliative care to one group of people. That means we cannot really measure the outcome very effectively, but we can measure the process and the output. Are we using the ideal tested and proven process measures, and are we achieving at some results with what we are doing? The Indian Association of Palliative Care in 2021 revised a set of indicators that was fixed 15 years prior to that. Dr. Anjum led it, and we now have this essential standards document on our website. It measures palliative care access and quality by 3 sets of indicators, which are again classed as essential and desirable. As you can see, the first 2 are based on output. Is pain treated? Essential medicines are available. The others are based on process, how we do it. Now, even more recently, the World Health Organization has come out with a set of what they call actionable indicators for assessing palliative care development worldwide. Now, an important point to note here is the indicators are based on a strategy. This is something important for us to remember. We are not only talking about palliative care delivery from our air-conditioned chambers. We are talking more about palliative care at the primary level, at the community, engaging the community. They need to be supportive to the patient and family, to the cause. And all people engaged in primary care, any healthcare providers, need to be aware of palliative care and should be able to incorporate it into their work. Which means our own palliative care units will not be enough. We will have to stand by when the primary care healthcare provider wants a consultation or a transfer. We stand by. Now, the set of indicators are based on this premise. Again, these indicators are based on 6 domains. Are the palliative care services available at the primary level integrated into healthcare? Are the health policies facilitatory? How about the use of essential medicines, education and training, empowerment of people and communities, and research? And most unfortunately are only process measures. Again, we don't have a miracle outcome measure yet. What I'll do is try to take you through these indicators and try to make it applicable to the Indian context. Do we have a national palliative care program, policy, or strategy? Important process measure with a defined implementation framework. Maybe before we move on to answering these questions, we'll see where we are. We do have a national palliative care program. I'll talk to you about that later. But it doesn't have a defined implementation framework. That's where the gap lies. The National Program for Palliative Care is functioning to a small extent at the primary care level. A giant step forward was the inclusion of palliative care in the National Health Policy, and that's something that's done. And is there a national coordinating authority for palliative care? Yes, indeed. The Directorate General of Health Services has a couple of officials who, not full-time, but at least part-time, are spending time on the palliative care part of the National Health Policy. So if you look at the policy angle of the process measures, we have made significant advances. How about the use of essential medicines? The only WHO approved till now, till 2020, approved measure for as an indicator for palliative care access used to be annual. This document mentions morphine equivalence consumption per capita as an indicator. This is an output measure because almost invariably it could translate to pain relief. And it also includes availability of essential medicines at all levels and availability of immediate release morphine at primary level, at the primary level. That is important. Now, where are we in our country with this? Unfortunately, it's bad news. The black background is intentional. If you take UK as a standard, I mean, there is a reason UK follows the principle of balance, achieving reasonable access to pain relief for its citizens at all levels, at the same time preventing inappropriate or non-medical use. Not only the UK, most Western European countries have achieved this very well. So I'm taking this as a benchmark. Where are we? See, infinitesimally small. Leave alone UK. The global average itself is 6.3. The much famed Kerala model still achieves, 10 times the national average, but it's only a fraction of the global average and infinitesimally small fraction of what is ideal. This we have to accept. We have far to go. Another indicator domain is education and training. Two indicators are mentioned here. One is the proportion of medical and nursing schools with palliative care formal education in undergraduate curricula and specialization in palliative medicine for physicians. As you can see, both have been achieved here. We'll talk more about it. And another domain is empowerment of people and communities in our country. I fear we have not taken this seriously. Do we have existence of groups dedicated to promote the rights of patients in need of palliative care? Certainly not at a national level. Do we have a national policy or guideline addressing advanced care planning? Well, yes. Indian Medical Council had put up a model advanced directive format, but is it visible? Is it used? Is it relevant? Practically none. So we are not doing well here at all. And finally, research. I think it was Jawaharlal Nehru who said, it is because we are a low-income country that we cannot afford not to do research. We don't have a lot of money. We have to make sure that what we are using is effectively used, and that we are satisfying the people's needs. The indicators they have kept are congresses like this, but also palliative care research in the country estimated by peer-reviewed articles. We are not doing very well there at all, though we do have congress and scientific meetings. Kudos to IAPC. I have put up a question here. Mistaken belief, but ostriches have the bad reputation of hiding their heads under the sand when they are threatened. If it's not true, but even if it were, we humans are much, much better at this. We are very good at ignoring realities which they are unpleasant. I'll tell you why I say this. I have talked about the indicators to access, and in the various domains, I'm going to bring up some unpleasant truths. Palliative care has to be seen in the context of healthcare. How are we doing in healthcare? By the way, the red indicates countries which are doing very poor in this fashion, in this matter. This 2017 publication of in the Lancet brought up healthcare access and quality ranking. And India is not doing very well at all. It is 153rd of 195 countries studied. And please remember, low-income countries like Ghana and our low-income neighbors, Nepal and Bhutan, are doing better than us. In terms of general quality and access to palliative care, we are not doing very well. And poor end-of-life care. Most of you must have heard about the 2015 Quality of Death Index by Economist Intelligence Report with the support of Lane Foundation, in which India came among the worst 15 as far as the ranking of end-of-life care is concerned. We have a recent document from just last year. The same Lane Foundation funded it. And in this, 81 countries have been listed. And there India comes 59th. Does this climb from 67 out of 80 to 59 out of 81 mean that we have improved? I fear not. These are two entirely different studies, different methodology, different indicators. It will be unfair to compare apples with oranges, and we will not attempt to compare, but we will see that we are still in the red area, red zone. We are among the worst 25%. So whether it's improvement from the previous one or not, we are still doing bad as far as end-of-life care is concerned. Depressing, isn't it? But maybe there are worse issues where the ostriches have to get the head out of the sand. See what our healthcare system is doing. We are pushing for more than 4% of our population below poverty line in just 1 year. And it's not only affecting him, it's affecting the next generation and the next generation. Children dropping out of school and their children also being affected. What kind of healthcare is this? More recently, last year, Dr. Aju Matthew and colleagues showed that 54% of people with cancer, who are treated for cancer, are subject to catastrophic health expenditure. These are realities that we must consider. If we just write prescriptions for pain analgesics or other palliative care medication and expect the patient to take it regularly, we are living in a fool's paradise. Why are we doing it? Why are we wasting our time? The social realities will have to be considered, and social interventions, along with our emotional and physical interventions, must be there as part of any palliative care activity. If not, we are living in a fool's paradise. The World Health Assembly Resolution 67 of 2014 asks us to integrate palliative care into health systems at all levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary, meaning that you and I cannot do it all. Every single nurse, every doctor, every physiotherapist, every pharmacist, every medical social worker in healthcare must incorporate principles of palliative care in their work. And that should be from the beginning of the suffering to the end, across the continuum of care. And for this, the engagement of the community is the base. It's not an optional extra anymore. We have global policies recommending it. We know that this works. This has been proved effective in our country also. We have to engage with the communities, not only awareness, participation in palliative care work. It can be done, the methodology is also with us. But equally importantly, we have to facilitate palliative care training to all healthcare professionals so that palliative care units like ours will have to see only patients who are filtered out as having worse problems when necessary. And before I go to the final recommendations, let us also talk briefly about the Astana Declaration of 2018. World nations got together. India is a signatory to this. And we together have decided that health for all has to be health with all. Engage with the community. Reach the people where they are when they need us. That's also Astana Declaration's recommendation. This woman living in the village who had a fracture of the femur had a surgical correction done. She has a nail in her femur. Great. But when she goes home, she would have been bedbound and she would have died there. It required Mr. Francis, the volunteer, to identify the problem and required my colleague, Dr. Sunil Kumar, to reach the patient in her home. It required our staff member to support the whole initiative. It required physiotherapists. And together, she got back to life. Healthcare has to be health with all. Engage the community. Health care, including palliative care, should reach people where they are. The fact that the rest of the healthcare does not reach there is not something to hold us back. We are innovators, we are pioneers, encroaching onto the world of suffering. And we need to do this if we are to improve palliative care services in the country. I believe we are on the right track, that we are poised to make a tremendous leap forward. Why do I say that? I have reason to say that. See these 5 boxes. I'll start with the National Program for Palliative Care of 2012. A document that was created by the late Sri Keshav Deshraju IAS, my respects to his memory, who was Principal Secretary of Health at that time, and Dr. Sudhir Gupta, who was Additional Director of Health Services, Additional Director General of Health Services till recently. Beautiful document. Even today, if it were applied, the country would change. Unfortunately, only a tiny part of it has been implemented. And in 2014, we got the Indian Parliament to change the law. If that were implemented all over the states, again, we have the ground laid for your work beautifully. And major achievement. 2017 National Health Policy includes palliative care. Unfortunately, its implementation is happening only at the primary level, but significant progress is happening. It is not underestimated. Already in 2021, national level trainers have been trained. For every state level palliative care trainers have been trained, and they will now deliver some palliative care training to 50,000 family wellness centers covering more than 150,000 healthcare providers. Oh, they are not going to be palliative care experts, but at least they have been exposed to it. They are aware of it. And now progress has to happen. And another giant step. Undergraduate MBBS students from 2019 will learn palliative care. At least it's there in the curriculum. And only a few months back, nursing curriculum also has included palliative care. You cannot underestimate the significance of this. But having the curriculum there as a document is one thing, getting it is implemented is another thing. Of the 500 plus medical colleges in the country, only about 40 or less would have palliative care. What's happening to the bulk of the medical colleges with no palliative care? Who will teach it? We have to empower them to teach it. And the same holds true for nursing curriculum. The curriculum is there. We have to facilitate that education. Ladies and gentlemen, we have these fantastic advances. None of them will come into fruition completely unless we in palliative care act as catalytic forces, join hands, and work hard at making these things practically applicable. Sorry, 1 second. I have one more slide to show. It was misbehaving. Let me see whether I can get it on now. So I was showing you this, and I'll conclude by thanking you. Oh, sorry. By thanking you and also mentioning that whatever I have shown here is available to share with you. You can email me. The email ID is this keeps happening. The email ID is given here, or most of these things are available on our website also. But any other references, any other documents mentioned here, if you need it, you only have to email me. I promise a response. Ladies and gentlemen, it was good to talk to you. These are exciting times. I look forward to tremendous advances in palliative care being made to happen by all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, sorry for my technical problem. I couldn't join earlier, but I was listening to your talk, and really I'm thankful for initiating that you must measure so that we can improve. That's a very important topic you have told, that unless you measure, you don't know where we stand, and then we can maybe improve ourselves for the palliative care activities. Thank you very much for your very lucid talk on this, and I must thank you and continue help those who are having problems to develop palliative care. As you just told, that palliative care is growing, but maybe very slowly, and hopefully with the effort of everybody, we can achieve, and maybe very slowly. And I must also thank Professor D'Souza for his nice talk of the last 40 years of experience. And very important thing he mentioned, you should not try to remove the tumor from the patient, you remove the patient from the tumor. That very, hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
There's some disturbance. So thank you very much for these two enlightening talks, both from very senior persons from palliative care. And maybe if somebody can have some questions, I think Professor D'Souza and Professor Rajagopal would like to take any comments.
I don't think we have a Q&A for this session, Dr. Naik.
We have got 4 minutes.
Yeah, so I do want to, if the tech team has any questions, please forward them to us. But I do want to say, Dr. Rajagopal, your talk was very, very informative, and as always, you are a leader to help us take stock of the situation in the country. I think I tend to be an optimistic, so I feel a lot of optimism when it comes to palliative care. I think with the use of your presentation, work on benchmarks and saying, okay, where are we today when it comes to access to care, and what do we want to achieve in the next 5 years? What do we want to achieve in the next 10 years? The beauty of what has happened, you are right in that last slide but one, the one that you were happily able to show, as opposed to the one that was proving so much difficulty to come up. But that slide is the most important. The government has started responding. I remember when I first started working in this field with you, that we had very slow responses. I think it is today the IAPC, which is doing some fabulous work. In the last 5 years, a lot of progress is being made. Pallium India, many other NGOs are also working. And yesterday, Dr. Vinod Paul's talk was the same. I mean, he said, let's work more methodically together, a lot more research, a lot more academic, a lot more, let's benchmark and work towards finite progress over time. So, thank you very much. And between our two speakers, I think we've had great, both aspects of palliative care. One is to say, let us do it with rigor and science and benchmark and academic and research, because only then we will know what difference we are making. And on the other side, let us not forget what it is about. It is about care, compassion, and love. And these two faces today, I think I will certainly take them away, sleep on them, sleep on what they have said. And I think we will all today from this plenary take away messages that will inspire us to do better. So thank you very much for joining us, all the audience. And yes, there are no questions in the session. So Dr. Priya, back to you.
So, yeah, sure. Thank you. And what a wonderful hour listening to, as you rightly mentioned, Poonam, about the standards and quality, and at the same time, compassion and empathy and listening. I think we'll go back again, going to our first lessons in palliative care and revisiting it again and again. Dr. Lucito D'Souza and Dr. Rajgopal sir, it's pleasure listening to you, and we all get inspired every time we listen to you. I think we'll stop here. Thank you very much, and I formally thanks both the chairpersons as well. Thank you.
Thank you.